I'll never forget the night a woman in heels and a clipboard tried to burn 70 years of my family's memories, then called the cops on me for it. It all started with a kayak. A bright lemon-yellow kayak I'd spent the morning painting on my grandfather's old dock, the one he built with his own hands back in the 50s, right here on the edge of Lake Pendleton. He always said the color helped the fish see us coming, said it showed respect. And honestly, I kept the tradition going because it reminded me of him, not because it was practical, just because it mattered. Now picture me on a quiet September morning, sun barely risen, paintbrush in hand, lost in a memory. Then click, clack. The sharp sound of heels on wood snapped me right out of it. And there she was, Cynthia Beckett, president of our HOA and unofficial dictator of the Ridgeview Lakes community. Perfect posture, expensive blazer in summer heat, wielding a laser measurer like it was a sniper rifle. "What do you think you are doing?" she asked, already frowning like my presence alone offended her. I told her the truth, painting my grandfather's kayak. She snorted and pulled out a leather folder like a sheriff serving warrants. Regulation 312B. All visible watercraft must conform to approved neutral tones. Then she shows me a palette. Beige, gray, another gray, beige again. "You've got 48 hours to repaint it," she said, smiling like she'd just evicted a puppy shelter. Now, I'm a history teacher. I deal with teenagers who think Julius Caesar is a salad, so I know how to keep calm. I told her this kayak had been yellow since 1952, long before the HOA existed. "This dock is private property," I said. "It's not within your jurisdiction." But Cynthia, oh no, she came prepared. She aimed her laser, did some quick math, and declared my dock was 49.7 feet from the HOA border. According to her, anything within 50 feet was under their control. "For the good of the community," she whispered like it was a magic spell, then handed me a violation notice like she was blessing me with holy HOA justice. I tried to let it go, I really did. But that night, right around 2 a.m., I couldn't sleep. Something didn't sit right. I went to the window, lights off, just listening. Then I saw them. 2 figures at the dock. One was Cynthia. The other was a younger guy I didn't recognize, dragging my kayak off the dock. I couldn't believe my eyes. I pulled up the security cam footage. Thank God I'd installed cameras last month after some packages went missing. Every angle was covered. HD video, clear as day, or rather, clear as moonlight. I hit record, then another record on my laptop webcam. Triple backup. Because when someone's that petty, you don't take chances. They wheeled my grandfather's kayak about 100 yards down to what Cynthia called the community beach. I watched as she poured gasoline on it and lit a match. The flames lit up her face, and she smiled. Then, with the kayak still burning, she pulled out her phone and called 911, said I was hostile, said I was threatening community property. You can't make this up. By the time Officer Landon showed up, half asleep, coffee in hand, the remains of my kayak were still glowing on the beach. I invited him in, handed him a mug, and showed him the footage. He watched it twice. Didn't say a word the first time, just sipped his coffee. Then, mid-sip on the second run, he paused. "Did she say, once it's off his property, it's abandoned goods?" Wow. That wasn't the end of it. I went back into the records, digging through files my grandfather had left behind. See, Arthur Henderson wasn't just a sentimental old man. He was smart, paranoid even. Turns out, 20 years ago, he'd filed a wildlife preservation designation for the entire lakefront, documented the bird species, sent data to the state, everything. I showed Officer Landon the official papers, signed and sealed. That so-called community beach, legally part of a federal wildlife preserve. What Cynthia did wasn't just arson. It was a federal environmental crime. Within an hour, more officers arrived. A detective, wildlife enforcement. And Cynthia? She went from queen bee to handcuffed liability real quick. But here's the twist. That guy helping her? Derek Myers, an intern at her real estate office. Turns out, Cynthia wasn't just enforcing rules. She was using the HOA to target properties that didn't fit the aesthetic, so she could bully owners into leaving, then flip the houses through her own agency. Real estate fraud, harassment, civil rights violations, you name it, she had a hand in it. And it didn't stop there. Detective Marquez called me 2 days later, said they'd checked into other neighborhoods, found 3 other HOA presidents tied to the same scheme. Cynthia had been running a whole network. Coordinated harassment, intimidation, fabricated violations, and always with that same damn phrase, for the good of the community. By Friday, it hit the news. Headlines like, HOA conspiracy unveiled, 4 presidents arrested in coordinated scam, went viral. My security footage, 2 million views in 24 hours. Someone auto-tuned Cynthia's 911 call, turned for the good of the community into a remix. It's still stuck in my head. But the best part? I rebuilt the kayak, brighter yellow than before, even added LED strips so it glows at night. And right at the entrance to my dock, a carved wooden sign that says, Private Property, Federal Wildlife Preserve, Neighbors Welcome, Karen's Not So Much. Petty? Maybe. But earned? Absolutely. Last weekend, we held the first ever Freedom from HOA cookout. Over 100 people showed up, bringing food from every background, every culture. No beige plates, no measuring tape, no silent fear. Just kids laughing, music playing, and neighbors actually talking to each other for once. And Cynthia? She's banned from using the phrase, for the good of the community, during her community service hours. She now writes weekly essays titled things like, Why Wildlife Protection Matters. I read one. Miserable. Full of passive-aggressive grammar. Beautiful. You know what my grandfather wrote in one of his old letters? Sometimes the biggest wave comes from the quietest ripple. Guess it was time to make waves. But now I gotta ask, if your HOA pulled something like this, would you roll over? Or light a fire of your own? Let me know in the comments. I'll be reading every one.